Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to say hello, hello several more times because I've noticed that StreamYard takes about 8 or 9 seconds to somehow configure the right level for the audio. And the first hello always comes out like, so,
That's just how you speak.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a bit rosy this morning. WP Builds, it's This Week in WordPress once more, every Monday, 2 p.m. UK time. We are joined by a fantastic panel this week, and I'm going to get Paul Lacey, who is my co-host, to introduce them to you. So I'm going to hand straight over to you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we do have some really good stories this week to cover, and like you said, we've got a pretty amazing panel. I'm really excited to have these two people on with us today. So first of all, we've got Anne McCarthy, who is Developer Relations Wrangler working for Automatic, and she's focused on the WordPress.org space and leading the full site editing outreach program, which is something we've been talking about a lot over the last few weeks, and it's kind of the big exciting thing that's going on in the background at WordPress.org. And we've also got the legend Joe Casabona, who is a podcaster, educator, and developer who helps people launch podcasts and create content. Before we move on, Anne, I just wanted to ask, this title, Wrangler, seems to be something that you always hear about people in Automatic, and I don't really know too much what this word means in relation to a job role. So could you explain to us what Automatic Wranglers are?
I think it's Automatic's way of having a position be a catch-all. So it's kind of like you're wrangling whatever comes at you. And it's Automatic's just creativity with job titles and team names. But it basically covers everything from high-level communication, project management type stuff, creating educational resources, talking one-on-one with devs, doing things like this, the outreach program. And it's just kind of a way to have a catch-all role where you're just wrangling developer relations. Yep. I think of it as almost like herding cats. So just see it as Automatic's creativity.
That's cool. I mean, in the UK, we have a situation with a lot of people I know who are in regular jobs are always complaining, and they say, that's not in my job description, and how dare my employer make me do that? So I think if we just start calling everyone Wranglers from now on,
it'd be perfect.
They can't
and
really
it's
complain.
in our creed too. Like that's the other part.
That's
is
right.
You know, I won't just work on the things that are assigned to me, and it's one of the things I love most about working at Automatic.
Exactly.
Actually. So
yeah. Brilliant. Well, thanks for clearing that up. That's brilliant. So we were going to go straight into our first article, aren't we, Nathan?
I'm just going to share my screen because I refreshed StreamYard and failed to put my screen back on. So there we go. Let's just move away from that and go straight to this little lovely piece, which I know that is it me introducing this one or is it you?
I can do it, I guess. Yes. So,
okay, you go for it.
There's a lot of articles around at the moment about WordPress 5.7, which is just being released, and it's really a good release. I think most people are pretty unanimous in that because there's some really good stuff for everyone in there. There's a bunch of different articles going through it. There's a good one on the iThemes website if you'd like to read it. But if you want to just have someone talk you through the full details of everything, then Joe has got a video on his YouTube channel that you can see, and it's called What's New with WordPress 5.7. And Joe, what are you enjoying about WordPress 5.7?
Well, there's a few things. I kind of ramble on about things I didn't expect to, like the admin color scheme. That has changed. It's been more simplified. It's WCAG AA compliant, and I just think there's like a bunch of subtle changes there that make it look so much nicer, and I was really pleased with that. And the thing with my What's New with WordPress videos is they're always my first look at it. I never like go through and rehearse anything. I just want first impressions. And so I'll read a few of those great write-ups that come out before. I'll check out the field guide. And about 24 hours after the new version drops, my video will come out. And so these are mostly my first impressions. But so I loved the admin color scheme. It was my first time seeing it. I compared it to 5.6, and I just think that the subtle changes are really fantastic. My favorite change, and this is going to sound super weird, is I can change the font size for the list block.
Yeah, I saw you say that. Yeah.
Just because it solved a problem I was having like 5 days prior. where I was sizing up some of the paragraphs on my about page, and I wanted to size up the list items too, but I couldn't without an extra CSS class or whatever. So just seeing that, and like, I mean, all the block editor changes are really nice. The ability to drag and drop from the block inserter is something I've tried to do multiple times before that, and just the ability to do that now is great. I think perhaps the change that is going to be biggest impact but like least intrusive is the HTTPS migration.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, if you watch that video, you'll see when I change something during the edit, I'll say Editor Joe. So like Editor Joe's coming in here to let you know that I spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out how to do the HTTPS migration before realizing it just happens. So I think that is going to be just a fantastic change. It's something that I would, most of us probably relied on the same plugin for. And it's nice that we will not need an extra plugin to do that now. So those are the three things that I was most excited to showcase. Lazy loading iframes, just like with lazy loading images, I think it was in 5.5 where that came out, is going to be pretty impactful on performance, I think, especially because like YouTube videos are loaded with iframes, right? And so the fact that we're not loading those straight away is going to be really good. And this also wrapped up the 3-version jQuery migration. So if you're going to jump on 5.7, make sure if you rely heavily on jQuery, which if you are not technically savvy, that might mean you have some sliders somewhere or a big accordion somewhere that might use jQuery. Just make sure you test that first. There's a jQuery update plugin in the repository, and then there's a jQuery migrate plugin in the repository that will help you do that.
Thank you, Joe. So if we were to search for your YouTube channel, would we be looking for just sort of YouTube Joe Casabona, or has it got a different name?
The title is Joe Casabona, yeah. So
Okay.
you can find that, and it's like a big cheesy, like me like crossing my arms because that's what you're supposed to do, I guess.
Yeah.
But the URL is like /c/creator courses because I created it under my education brand. But
okay. Yeah, it was a good video. I watched it from start to finish. I actually did notice, as soon as I'd finished watching your video, I went over and found this article, which is the sort of iThemes version. And I'm just going to go through them, actually, if that's all right, because some of them you've highlighted already, but I'll just go through the sort of 21 things, because I thought this was quite a nice way of summarizing what's happened. So, yeah, as Joe said, WordPress 5.7, Esperanza, there's a sort of list of all of them. We won't dwell on them too long. This is quite handy. I've actually already deployed this already. There's now a button in the user list where you can send a password reset. I had a client that needed that this week, and I pressed the button, and for all intents and purposes, it seemed to work off the bat. So that was quite nice. What else have we got? This is the one that Joe was just talking about. Joe, I don't know if you saw this little video actually shows that it surfaces as a button in the site health panel.
It does. I saw this video and I couldn't get it to work on my own site. And I don't know if it's just because I've always been using HTTPS, but like I couldn't fake it for the video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the problem, right? I got it. Yeah. So if you've got site health, if your visitors are looking at site health and that pops up, hopefully they can fix that for themselves now. They won't need any technical skills. This is my favorite one. This drag and drop blocks, just because I'm so used to using things like Beaver Builder. It's absolutely the interface that I'm used to. So positioning the cursor where I want something to go and then clicking on a block has always been a bit of a subpar thing for me. And now the fact that I can drag it in, I actually tried to get it to do things that I'm used to in Beaver Builder, like I could put it between things, but then to get it to go and make 2 columns or something like that was a little bit more tricky.
It's a little finicky at times.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that. Custom icon backgrounds. You can make the icons bigger and smaller and give them colors, or take the backgrounds away and things like that. And Joe, I think, found the sort of the positioning of some of the menu items to be a bit fruity, shall we say. He was expecting things like size to be over here, and it wasn't. It was over here, and so on.
Yeah, and that's something that I intended to submit to, like, as feedback. Just there's, you know, some instances, and I understand why, and it was easy enough to find. There was just some things that I thought would be in one place for one block and were in a different place for another block. And I'm sure that could already be fixed in the latest version of Gutenberg, right? Because I think 9.9 is merged into core here, and we're on 10.2 or 10.3 now.
10.2 comes out, I think, tomorrow fully. Yeah.
Okay. Joe's favorite, the font size support for lists. I do find the I don't know, the nomenclature, the fact that it's called like extra large, large, and all of that kind of stuff. I was just curious as to how that crept in, as opposed to just a font size, a number, as opposed to a word. But I like the huge at the end. Just want it huge. Select that one. Okay, keep going. You can define the button block percentage widths. What else have we got? New height alignment for the cover block, which seemed to work in Joe's demo. You can go and check it out in there. Font size support in the code block. Again, really nice if you want to demonstrate your code really large. New vertical layout. So there's an option to transform the layout to be stacked or side by side, which is really nice. You can see the side by side there. What else have we got? The spacer block is now semi-transparent. How did that? That's just so cool. Like, why did that never happen? I don't know. Now you can really see the transparency of the block, so it's obviously there. Switch to text labels in the block toolbar and preference redesign. Do you know what? I'm just not even going to go on. I think that's probably enough of that article. But go to iThemes and check it out. But I'm curious. We know what Joe's favorite is. It's the icon size. We know what my favorite is. It's the dragging. What about you, Anne? What's your favorite?
Oh, man. Probably the password reset, only because I worked so much on a multi-site and with nonprofits back in the day and small businesses that was a constant, like trying to get user permissions in place, and making that easier, I think is really, really cool. Easier and safer and contained. I think it's a great, easy thing for people who are managing sites.
Quite a lot of actual workflows involve using, plugin workflows and affiliate sign-up schemes actually want you to go and reset the password. And if people don't configure the emails properly, you're supposed to know that that's what you've got to do. So that is really cool. You can just click the button and you're gone. What about you, Paul?
Oh, well, first of all, I don't know if you know, but Anne is in the list of the contributors to this release as well.
Yeah.
So I guess you, thank you. First of all, thank you, because we like this release. This is definitely a good one. So I guess in that you were supporting some of the other developers. It's part of your role. That's how that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's mainly more of support role is a good way to put it. It's more organizing efforts and writing. Like, for example, I'm doing a series that I'm calling Core Editor Improvement Posts. So 2 of those things that were mentioned on there, the text icons and the drag and drop from, the inserter, are things that I've written about, made sure it's well known. So then when a release comes around, it's really easy to communicate and that work can be highlighted. So it's pretty weird to see my name there. I'm not going to lie. Definitely get some imposter syndrome.
Very cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah. So the features I liked, first of all, I really like the color scheme thing. And because, again, I just love that attention to detail, that like a tiny thing that we can technically live without and all work around, gets that attention, and then everything seems to make sense. There's just the friction for the user is just reduced so much by that. So I love that. And then the other thing that's really cool is the drag and drop. And when Nathan and I were playing around with this, it just struck me. I just thought, I just didn't even realize that wasn't a thing already.
It does feel like one of those features that's already been there. It's like, wait, how did I not notice this didn't exist? Yeah.
But it totally makes sense. But one of the cool things about it is I honestly think it's going to highlight some obvious changes that the UI could take now, because in Joe's video, he was changing one thing over here and then jumping over there to change it. And then when Nathan and I played with this latest update, we were dragging in, for instance, a header block, and then we'd hit to edit it, and the thing that at the side would suddenly jump back to the side, and then the thing that we're editing would get a bit bigger. And it felt quite similar to something like Elementor, and it felt like, hey, is this the time where that sidebar becomes a real thing, and that you drag it in like you do with Elementor. I'm a Beaver Builder user, but the Elementor interface felt more similar to this, that you drag something in, and then you're editing all the settings related to that heading stay over on the left-hand side for the module that you're editing, exactly just like Elementor, and it seemed to be a great move forward with the dragging in, but then it made even less sense that you drag something in from there, some of the edit stuff you edit over there, then some of the things you edit over there, and then you come back over to the other side to drag a new thing in, that goes away again. So it feels like it's the first step in like what will probably be a really much easier way to evolve the builder, because it's just going to make so much more sense to have the conversation now. So we drag the thing in, and then we do this. So I was really pleased to see that.
I think too, there's also the block directory, which as that picks up steam, that's going to be a more used interaction, and we'll see some evolution there. Same with a block pattern directory. So when patterns kind of become more ubiquitous, I think we'll see the inserter take a even bigger role. I think a lot of people have started using the / command or just using the plus buttons that they find throughout the post. I myself sometimes forget to use the inserter. I was trying to quickly build a homepage for a previous full site editing test, and you can literally drag and drop a pattern in, which is amazing. But I forgot that you could do that. It was one of those things where I get so used to finding my own workflow. But when things like the block directory and block patterns become bigger, and even reusable blocks in this 5.7 release is now listed in the inserter as well. So it is becoming a more prominent interaction for users and site builders.
Yeah, it really does feel like the biggest update that I've had in a long time, the most significant one, and there's so much to like about it. So what were yours, Paul? Dragging, and what was the other one?
I just the colors.
Oh yeah,
and like I said, if you put those two things that I like, the drag and drop and the colors, what I'd love to see is that the block editor, in these tiny kind of interaction aspects about it, get the level of thought put into them the same as the colors have, because look at the impact a tiny little thoughtful change can have. So, when we were playing with it, Nathan, you were trying to drag something in between two columns, and it kind of indicated to you that was going to work, but then nothing happened, sort of thing. It wouldn't allow you to do it. And the more we were dragging, when you and I were trying it out, the more we were dragging things in, we're like, wouldn't it be great to just be able to turn the plus icons off now, so that we don't have them, creating space vertically for us all the time? So it just, but immediately we were able to just have a quick conversation about, wouldn't it be nice if that, but before those draggable things were coming in, we were having a conversation constantly around, you press plus and then this happens, and then you press plus and then this happens. So I think it's changed the direction of the conversation. So I really like that it's come in much easier.
I'm going to bring this back to folks. This is good feedback.
And writing them down, Paul. Say more quickly. Say loads of the things that we said the other day. Quickly, listen. One of the things, Anne, can we have it so that when you click on the inserter, it doesn't push the content left. It just hovers over the content instead. Right. Any more?
Yeah. Should we just forget the rest of the articles and just ask Anne for things?
I'll just write it down.
Is that all right? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting with the sidebars, because it is a very big accessibility issue. So as you said, if it didn't squish the content, it actually would probably hide things that I don't know how screen readers would interact with. If
you were doing full site editing, you'd suddenly get you would probably get a tablet view suddenly, as opposed to a desktop view for just for that brief moment you had the inserter open.
Which
one thing that I've
tough.
One thing that I really noticed was that I don't know what this is all about. I don't know if this is just something with the theme that I'm using. I'm actually, the website that I was using this week was using the Beaver Builder theme, but just the experience, like the typography inside the editor just looks so much nicer. It was bound in a different way. There seemed to be a different amount of pixels on either side. And the shortcode widget, for want of a better word, now no longer consumes 90% of the screen. That with like 100 pixels of padding at the top and the bottom, it's now the correct size. It's like 2 lines, which is really nice. So I'm not having a problem with that.
Yeah, that hadn't occurred to me either. But yeah, you're right.
I insert the audio player via a shortcode, and it was just really big, massive, with just padding. Yeah, it was massive, but now much better. Yeah, so bravo, really nice release. We're going to move on to the next piece, if that's all right. This one's about full site editing, but It's over on, let me just find it. I think it's over on, yeah, the first thing I want to mention is not actually about full-site editing itself, but it's about, oh, I'm going to have to share my screen again. I seem to have, add to stream, there we go. Full-site editing is around the corner. And I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention a course which is launching about full-site editing. I don't know if you've come across Carrie Dill's work before, but when I began using WordPress, Carrie Dill seemed to be absolutely everywhere. You know, she was a tremendous resource of me learning things right at the outset. And she continues in that vein. She's got a WordPress full-site editing course. I confess I haven't even looked at what is contained in the course, but I just thought that this may be represented a bit of a watershed. If somebody like Carrie is prepared to put the time in and create a course around full site editing, then presumably she feels there's some benefit to it. You know, it's matured enough. Obviously, there's a long way to go. And we are lucky enough today to have Anne on the show, and she's been instrumental in full site editing. So very quickly, I'm going to draw your attention to this article, which is over on WP Tab, and it's Sarah Gooding. She writes a new piece called Full Site Editing Testing Challenge. Create a custom 404 page. Now, Anne, I could paraphrase this piece and just tell everybody what's in it, or I could just say, what did Sarah? You jump in and take it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say Carrie Dills very kindly did a video for the first round of testing for full site editing, and really brought people together in the full site editing outreach channel and WordPress.org Slack, which was really cool. So the fact that she's doing a course, I think, is excellent. I did look at it. I did peek through. I haven't purchased it yet, but I plan to. I think it's such a neat thing to see people building content like this. And I think the way she has it laid out is excellent. I highly recommend checking that out. It is meant for developers by description, but she does a really good job of setting the foundation. And one of the things that I'll talk about with the call for testing is that there's actually kind of like a new language paradigm that for people who aren't site builders or aren't developers, it might be an adjustment. So things like template editing or template parts, or even reusable blocks, like the idea of reusable blocks, I think are things that she goes over really well and really sets the foundation first before going through and talking about what does this mean if I'm a theme author? Like, how does this change theme development? Because it does change theme development in a way that I actually think frees up theme developers to focus on really cool user-facing things rather than the basics, if that makes sense. But I'm super excited to see her doing this, and I hope to see way more of it. I know one of the things I'm working on with the outreach program is to see what people would like to have on Learn WordPress, which is WordPress.org's kind of free learning platform. And I've created a couple courses there already, but I'd like to create some specifically for full site editing, kind of inspired by stuff like this. So I'm very keen to check it out. In terms of the call for testing, Sarah was also very kind enough to write up a post on this, and she did it so quickly. It seriously made my day. I responded in the comments, but she jumped in, and basically the challenge is just to create a custom 404 page. And for context, I come up with these challenges. I talk to designers, I talk to developers, I figure out what's ready, what's kind of what has momentum that possibly might need testing, as well as kind of what's in a stable enough place where we can have people dig into it and get real feedback. And I, quite frankly, love 404 pages. I love when I find a good one. It truly makes me happy. I think we can all kind of remember like the first time we saw like a really creative 404 page where you kind of like sat back and you laughed or something like that, or it made you think. So the whole test is designed around building a custom 404 page. And the reason for the test is that it's a very tangible way to get involved with full site editing. You're editing a template directly, the 404 template. You actually create a custom template part, which can be like a header or footer. That's how the easiest way to think of template parts. And it digs into specific blocks like the navigation block. And the navigation block is going to be a big part of full site editing, making sure that interaction is done well. She actually, I don't think, made used the navigation block in this test, but you don't have to. But she found some great bugs. I actually replicated one of them around the embed. I found a similar issue to the embed where actually it showed up, but it showed up really tiny. And you can't actually resize it. So that's one of those things where it's interesting as we release new blocks with the full site editing experience or just with the core editor in general. there are some like funny little things where, oh, I'm really used to having a setting on the image block, but why doesn't this exist with the site logo block? That was one of the big things for the last call for testing, where we don't have the same image controls for the site logo that you might have for the image block. So how do you make sure there's consistency there in the interaction? And kind of it touches back on what you all were talking about with 5.7, where I was like, wait, why is the sizing showing up here? Why is the setting here and not over there? And I think with full sighting, one of the things I'm excited about with these tests is figuring out where those settings should live, what feels intuitive, what's really jarring, what things people will never find. And especially with things like global styles, that's something I'm really keen to test in the future, and actually haven't made a big focus of any of the testing thus far. But that's kind of like my spiel, my overview, but I'm happy to answer questions or talk about it more. I could talk about this for hours. That's all I think about.
Well, I talk enough, so if Joe's got a question or if Paul do, then go for it.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, that Carrie Dills is one of the coolest people ever. I got to work with her at Crowd Favorite, and now we're both LinkedIn Learning instructors and instructors. Cool. I'm happy to be in that group with her. And I was pretty surprised to see this until I realized it was more developer focused. Full site editing is something I intend to cover in my Gutenberg course when it comes out next month, hopefully. Nice. I am very feverishly trying to finish another course for LinkedIn Learning. But I wrote about this in my WordPress year in review. I am so excited for full site editing. I just tested it. It was like a super early beta, like before 5.6 came out, I think, or around the time 5.6 came out. And I was just like blown away by some of the stuff that you can do, and like it was said here, how it's going to change, and I think you said this, how it's going to change like how theme developers develop and what we can focus on. And I think that's super duper cool. And with the challenges, I was excited to see this because I'm always trying to think of content for my YouTube channel, and this is like perfect content for the YouTube channel. So I'm thinking I'll go back and do each of the challenges and maybe do a couple of collabs with other YouTubers
that would be really awesome. And like that's one of the things I say with the outreach program is don't wait for a call for testing to test this out. I actually have a page that I made in a handbook that's literally just how to test full sighting. Like depending upon if you're a theme developer, if you're just a user, if you're a site builder, like whatever it is, like jump in, do it on a test site. Of course, it is beta. I always say that. My dad called me the other day saying he wanted to test it on one of his sites. And I was like, no, like don't do that. But it is amazing to kind of jump into aspects of WordPress that we've never been able to touch before and do. Like it is something that I think will really be a paradigm shift. And one thing I love is that it's not an all or nothing shift. I think that's one thing that with the 5.0 release that really left a lot of what I'll call cultural debt in the community around how these major releases happen. And it's something that the outreach program is designed to help not have happen again, quite honestly. And I'm really keen to kind of show people how, if you're not ready for it, the second it merges into core, whenever that is, it's okay. There's going to be so many pathways, and it allows for people to join when they can, as they want to. And that might mean, for example, I think my favorite example right now is you could use a classic theme, but you could use specific blocks that have been created for the site editing experience. So that way you're getting benefits from the full site editing work that's gone into play for the last couple of years without needing to all of a sudden switch your entire site over. Or, if you upgrade to WordPress, your site's not going to be taken over with full site editing. That's not going to happen. You'd have to very carefully opt in, switch to a theme that allows it, all that sort, and the theme would have to support all these things. So I'm really excited to see more content get out there. It makes me really stoked that you're thinking about that already, because I do think we're in that place to kind of show people the excitement. And before, I think like even a year ago, you couldn't really put your hands on it. And something shifts the second you can put your hands on it. And I hope these calls for testing allow that excitement to build, because it allows you to kind of explore it safely.
Yeah, absolutely. I would group like the 404 page in with like the WooCommerce like order confirmation page as like something everybody wants to customize, but it's like very hard to do, and like you need to find a third-party solution, or you need to dig into the code. And Just seeing this come to right to the dashboard so people can do it. I think it's gonna kind of, it's like a renaissance for WordPress themes and WordPress theme design.
Is there anything that worries you?
I mean, like, so the first thing that came to mind, right, is like you give users more control and they'll break everything. But like, I've never really subscribed to that, right? Because it would be like a car dealer telling you can't paint your car, right? Like you drive the car off the lot and it's yours. Do whatever you want to it. And if you break it, take it back to the mechanic and they'll fix it, right? So I know that there's going to be that concern, like, oh, well, users, they're gonna like do red text on a black background or whatever. And like, it's their site and their prerogative, and if they break something, they can go back to you. So I mean, there's going to be some growing pains, but I think overall it's going to enable a lot more and a lot better stuff than it's going to probably create headache for people.
Yeah,
I think one of my it's not a frustration I have, but I think it's a frustration which is widespread, is that the comparison is always being made with the incumbent page builders, you know, the Beaver builders, the Elementors, these things that reach the market in a pretty mature state on day one in most cases, excuse me. and they did things in their own way. They had no legacy, you know, they didn't have to cope with 40% of the internet and not breaking 40% of the internet. They just came along, and if something broke, well, that was something that you needed to fix, or you could work with their support. And I think the expectation is that the full site editing should be what they've already done, if you know what I mean. So people come and look at it and say, well, it's not there yet. I'll come back to it in a year's time. And you were explaining to me before we pressed record on this show that it's much more of an iterative process. You know, there's an awful lot of legacy, a lot of things that are going on in the background that need to be achieved, which these other page builders don't need to worry too much about, because it's their proprietary stuff. They can just decide what to do regardless of what the community wants. And so I think we've become, well, spoiled. These tools are just so fabulous. You know, these page builders, they're so amazing and have allowed us to do so much stuff. And so we work on the basis that full site editing in core should be that yesterday, and it isn't.
Yeah, and I think one of the things right now too that I've heard from folks is kind of merging both of your points of view, where oh my gosh, this is so open, you can do so much, this is going to confuse the user, this is not enough. And then at the same time, it's so open, there's so much you can do, but it's not the same as page builders. Like, there's both of those complaints, which I think is really interesting. And one of the things that I know Matthias talked about in an update in December, and Matthias is the project architect of the project. And he basically said, like, we're starting on purpose really wide right now. Customization is wide open, and then we'll refine. And right now we're just about entering that refinement period, now that the milestones are kind of slowly being checked off. So that feeling of things being like, where are the settings? Why is it this way? How do you build? Like, that kind of stuff will start to get more and more refined, which I think will help with that feeling of it being so wide open. And at the same time, yeah, the page builder question I think is going to be really tricky. And my hope is that the experience is good enough where, you know, you may not necessarily need a page builder, or you can use it with it somehow. I think whenever you see like this gradual adoption phase, I think there will be a lot of like Frankenstein-like contraptions hooked up. I also do think there is a role for plugins to play, and possibly page builders. Like, page builders could be building on top of full site editing, for example. Right. And I wish they would. I encourage them to do so, especially when you look at the performance enhancements that the core editor has compared to a lot of these page builders. It's really impressive, and it gives you a great foundation to build on. But yeah, I'm very curious to see going forward how that kind of the sentiment might shift, and the role that these plugins can play to create unique experiences. Like, for example, you could have a plugin or a layer that puts it on top of the full siting experience that locks it down even more. Or you can have another layer that opens it up more. So I think you can have this dance and pool depending upon what you want. And I think there is a role for plugins to play in the future when it comes to full siting, rather than full siting being everything to everyone. I think there's this middle ground to reach. And then from there, people can customize their experiences, kind of how we always have been with WordPress.
Go on. Sorry, Joe. Carry on.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I love my page builder of choice and everything, but when I do something in Gutenberg or the block editor and it doesn't create like 14 nested divs, like I get very happy every time. Like I don't have to write some crazy long selector to target whatever I'm trying to target. So I think you're absolutely right that there could be a dance, right? Like if you need a really complex landing page right now, a page builder is probably better. But if you just want to build like nicer looking content, like the block editor can totally do that. And as far as your access goes, that was one of the that was an early question that Zach Gordon and I answered.
Oh, Zach is also awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, he's so cool. I like don't talk to him enough anymore. But when we were doing our like early Gutenberg education, we worked with VIP, and that was a question that came up a lot. Like, how do we make it so that only certain roles, for example, can change certain blocks? And we were able to answer that question with code, and I thought it was I'm not the best coder. I'm like pretty good, but I think that the fact that we were able to find a solution to that is indicative of the fact that you can do what you need to do. Like WordPress has been around for a long time, and there's a lot of stuff built in right to core.
Agreed.
Is there enough feedback? You put these exercises out, and so we've just been discussing the one about 404 pages, obviously 2 prior to that. Are you inundated with too many responses? Is there basically not enough? Is it somewhere in between? Are you about in the right place? My feeling is that I don't know. I have no idea.
I struggle with this because I have a very high standard for this program. I would take hundreds of responses, and I would spend as much time as it took to respond to each of them. So in terms of, is it too much feedback? No, I will always take more. The first call for testing, we had 12 people respond. The second call for testing, we had 14 people. You could count it as 22 because someone Courtney very kindly ran through the testing with a group of 8 of her students, recorded it, sent it to me. It was amazing. Really good feedback there. But yeah, I would love to see, my ideal is to have 20 to 30 engaged people with each call for testing. Mind you, I've also gotten feedback from my team members saying, and that is unrealistic. It is too many people. You getting even just 5 to 10 for when it comes to testing like this, usability testing, is great. But I'm still going to aim for that 20 to 30 people. And we have about 240 people, I think, as of this morning, in the FSC Outreach Experiment channel, which is where I organize the logistics for things. So yeah, if anyone, even if it's you spend 5 minutes with it and give me feedback, that's super valuable. And I think that's the whole point of these tests, is I want them to be both quick. So if you don't have a lot of time, you're still able to contribute. Justin Tadlock spent 2 hours on the first, or the first call for testing, or it might have been the second. Yeah. And that was amazing. I love that. I was like, yeah, this is the whole point, is that I want them to be extensible.
Chris Hughes in the comment, I think, probably makes the point that I sometimes think needs to be made more, which is where. So it's obviously, if you're in the WordPress Slack, then you can go and find that. But trying to find that, locating that, having the gumption to go out and do all of that. Is there another quicker way in? Are there many paths to this? Could you just contribute directly to you? What's the best way?
Honestly, yeah. If you want to send me feedback, that's totally fine. I might end up reposting it publicly because I want to make sure everything's really transparent. So just in line with open source dynamic, I don't want to be this linchpin who's like, oh, I have to report feedback to Ant. You can go straight to GitHub and you can drop in feedback straight there. You don't need to go through my calls for testing. I'm just there to facilitate. I'm not there to be a blocker or anything like that. So definitely keep in mind, you can go straight there. If you want to participate in the program, you do have to join Make Slack. Most likely, it's probably the easiest way to keep up. Or you can follow the Make Test blog. That's where I post updates. I am going to post one on Make Core today, actually, a summary post of like top issues that have come through. But yeah, in terms of different pathways, that's one of the things I've been struggling with, and part of why I'm so excited to be able to talk to people here. It's why I reach out to WP Tavern when I can. It's why I try and work with the marketing team in WordPress.org to share things on LinkedIn and Twitter, because there is a matter of getting outside the bubble. Which I think we're all trying to do in all areas of our lives. The technology be damned. But it's right now it's a struggle just to get, I would say it's a full-time job for me to do the calls for testing, respond to the feedback, amplify everywhere. manage the feedback back. Like it's a intense process as it is, but
I have a feeling also you're straying into an area of complete no code, low code people who maybe you've got no experience with this at all, and they just want to. Why won't it work like that? How can I give my feedback? And obviously, there's the support button in the plugin. Usually, you go there and there's your channel, and you get a reply from the paid for support person and what have you. This is a really different experience, but the level, you're really aiming this at a different level, possibly, aren't you? You know, people who come to WordPress want to be able to create a header, footer, what have you, with just clicking of a mouse and typing a few. I don't know, like typing the number 16 or something like that. So yeah, really interesting. So, okay. Paul said Chris said he'd sign up.
Oh, awesome.
And it looks like Chris is already there. So that's good. Paul, did you have anything to say?
Yeah. So yeah, Chris, hopefully see you in there. I contributed to not the 404 one, but the one before that. And, thanks to Birgit, because and so we're talking about bubbles, right? So, Anne's talking about the bubble that she's in and the people working over there, and then I found myself a month or so ago, every week, just ranting about, and there was times where we would do this show, and I would be prepping myself. I was prepping myself. I was like, okay, ready? Here's the story. There's the positive points. Say them. I'm just telling myself, and then just blah blah, and it just and I don't understand why they're doing this, and who's making the decision, all this sort of stuff, and thankfully Birgit came on the show and educated me to a certain extent, and also then put me in touch with Anne on the Slack group, and I was able to, because I was getting annoyed with being so annoyed.
Your feedback was fantastic, by the way.
Well,
it was
thanks.
really, it was awesome.
But the problem is with the different bubbles is that we can find ourselves being completely ignorant of what we think is going on and how we think that these decisions are being made. So one of my frustrations for a long time was the timeline for the full site editing. And I'm starting to understand it a bit more. I'm starting to understand when I see, Josepha's just put out a post about the timeline. And if you can look at that timeline there, I can look at that timeline a month or so ago and say, are you crazy? Do you really think we're there? Like, there's no chance we're in that blue zone over on the right there and we're in the iterate and refine. We're in the plan and experiment phase. But as I'm getting to understand how this is an iterative process, and I also understand that if you don't get full site editing into core, then the third party and the rest of the community who aren't in the inner circle of kind of the core team and stuff like that, they can't really work on it. So the ACF, Advanced Custom Fields, can't really do anything with full site editing until it's in core. And then when this thing is in core, then other people and other third party developers will start adding to that and start iterating it and start improving it. So I start to understand the reason why there is a rush to get this into core. So Chris and anyone else who's listening, I do think it's really a good idea to get into the Slack group and to have a go with the full site editing, because you will start to understand a little bit more about how this all works and who's working on it, and the challenges, the setup that is open source software development compared to something like Beaver Builder or Elementor, who are a commercial operation and can just listen to their users and respond on the basis of a little team meeting in a room or something, or in a quick Zoom room. So it's a much bigger challenge that the core team have got. And I start to understand it, like I say. So my concerns are just becoming less and less all the time. And I'm moving more towards where Joe is, where he's excited about what's coming. And I still do get triggered from the odd post, but I'm able, but I've got a framework, a mental framework.
It's anxiety inducing for me. I feel
I've got a mental framework to work around that now and go, okay, let's look at this in a less ignorant sense. And so yeah, I really recommend anyone getting involved in it. And if you're writing a post, Anne, in the next couple of days about the major findings, then I probably won't ask you now then about what you found from the
I can
test so
high
far.
level,
we can wait. Yeah, that would be
a
great.
quick preview because it's been on my mind for a while, and to explain basically taking all the feedback that I've gotten from the early calls for testing and do a summary post of like the main issues. And some of the top ones, I'm not going to recite them all probably because I haven't even started writing this post. I'm planning to have a draft by the end of today, but it's the start of mine. People want to preview their content. That previewing mechanism, we're so used to it. That is something that is baked into, ever since I've been using WordPress starting a decade ago. We really love to preview things. That was a major thing that kept coming up is people wanted to preview the changes before actually seeing it. And it kind of touches on some mistrust between the site editor and what you're going to see. So the WYSIWYG experience, so it's really interesting because it's a reaction to that. That was a big one. Wanting to change the width of content and alignment. Riyadh has an amazing post. He's a core contributor, rethinking full sighting alignment. Right now, that's kind of a negotiation between the theme and the full sighting experience. And so you're trying to open that up so you can actually overwrite things. So there was a lot of times where people in the editor would, have something be full width and then you view it on the site and it didn't actually go full width. And that's because of the interaction between the theme and the full sighting experience. So he's rethinking alignment there. Another big one, saving. Oh, I almost forgot that one. How could I forget it? So many things with saving. Oh my gosh. Talk about like concerns and stuff. There are so many, like, I went on a call last week with someone who is a blind WordPress developer. Her name's Taylor. She very kindly walked me through kind of the experience of full sighting using screen readers and the save button. You had to hit update design and then hit save. The save button does not have an ARIA label, so it does not announce that it's there. You would have she had to actually search for the word save in order to find it and select it and would have to know that it's there to begin with. And that goes from everything like those kinds of issues to multi-entity saving, which is very new for WordPress. What does it mean to actually update? You made these changes and wait, what is this? I don't know which changes in which place. So a lot of the interaction around saving is going to be key because the last thing they want is for people to not save the changes that they want or to save the wrong thing. And I think that's where the vocabulary around like template editing is going to be interesting and how to explain that to users in a way that feels smooth but has enough friction in the design. I'm trying to think. Those are the top three that are coming to mind right now.
That's good. I can see Joe squirreling down ideas for the upcoming.
I'm going to write this on MakeCore. Hopefully, I'll have it published by tomorrow. But we'll see how fast I can type. But that's kind of a preview of some of the stuff that I'm going to be covering at a very high level. This is without going into things like global styles yet. So I imagine to be doing an iterative post over the coming months as more calls for testing happen, do a high level post, more calls for testing, high level posts. And same goes for, I wanted to quickly mention, I've been doing a call for questions previously. So people could submit any question they had about full sighting and I would find the answer to it. It was a big effort. We got 46 questions, something like that. And wrote a summary post about each set of questions. I plan to do that again, likely in April or May, depending on the timeline of things, just to flesh out questions. Because I think these kinds of conversations, they can't always happen. And I want to allow other voices to come in and ask what they're concerned about to kind of ease things and set the pathway. So hopefully that helps too in the future. Like this isn't like a one-time, you have me here and you're never going to get answers again. Like it's something I'm dedicated to being continually involved in. So.
Wow. Thank you. That was a proper, lovely exploration of that subject. That was really, really great. Thank you so much. Paul, shall we move on? Do you feel? I think with 50 minutes under the belt, we probably should.
Definitely.
Your next
so we're
stop.
shifting into more of the kind of plugin sort of area of WordPress now. But Lee Jackson just made a comment. Apart from, he said, digging Paul Lacey in glasses. Thanks Lee. Thanks for your weekly contributions and compliments. I always enjoy those. And back at you. So also, apart from that, there was another comment that he said, that one. He says, honestly, our agency is heading away from WordPress for the next product. Pace of development coupled with decisions from the top have led us to reevaluate. So Lee, please do a podcast episode on that. If anyone doesn't listen to Lee Jackson's podcast, then they definitely should, because it's absolutely awesome. So, and that's the kind of plug you get if you say that you like my glasses. So keep it up, mate. Keep it up.
Unfettered access. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Okay. So, right, the next item we've got is over on Blog Vault. BlogVault have a couple of products which are almost all the same, but so I think they're trying to figure out what they're called. And one of them is called Malcare, and one of them is called BlogVault, and it's more or less the same thing. It's like a backup solution and a security solution and a dashboard as well for managing all your WordPress sites. I am a customer of BlogVault, and I pay them money every month, and I absolutely love this product just for managing all my sites. And it also does things like cleans up malware, scans for malware, takes backups of your site for 90 days of history. And they've got a new blog post on their site called 3 Reasons to Use an Activity Log on Your Website, which is convenient because they've just launched their Activity Log feature. So
wow, that's a good coincidence. Yeah.
Wow, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how those things happen, but it is a good feature. I've checked it out because I got the email about it as a customer, and then obviously we saw this article. But it is cool. You see in your dashboard in Malcare or BlogVault, whichever one you've got, a full history of all the different things that have happened. So if you're looking after client websites or even your own website, you can see who did what, who installed this plugin, who broke that, who published this post. So from a looking after clients perspective, it's quite good because I'm not going to say that clients lie, but sometimes they've selective memory over the things that you ask if they did something and they claim that they didn't. But you can see what they did or didn't do and help them remember and jog their memories on that. But if you've got your own website as well and you can use the history log, you can see that someone that wasn't you, anonymous user or something, did something. And that is obviously alerting you to something might be wrong. It could be that you've got a dodgy thing installed on your browser and your browser is pressing buttons in the back end of WordPress or something. But you can see that total history of everything that's happened in your website. So it's just really, this post is just a great post to kind of highlight the new feature that is coming out in BlogVault. But Anne, you told me that you used to work for Jetpack.
Yeah, I worked on Jetpack.
They've
for
got
about
one,
5
haven't
years.
they, as well?
Mm-hmm.
They have this functionality.
They do, and one of the things that I'm actually a little bit obsessed with activity logs because I actually originally started on WordPress, so I helped with security scans, restores, kind of getting in the guts of the website when things went wrong. And man, I always wanted an activity log, and the users who could come in and tell us this is exactly what happened before my site went down, it made the entire process of getting it back up so much easier. So I'm super excited to see more people in this space. I think one of the key things that I learned truly from like the ideation to the production stage with the activity log, going through design integrations, all that sort of stuff, what really makes an activity log useful is being able to search, filter, and act within the activity log. It's great to just have information, but it's even better when you can go back through, find the exact point, see where the last backup was, know what you're going to lose, and restore from there. So I think when you can kind of level it up in terms of giving true insights and true actions that you can intelligently make, that makes an activity log like chef's kiss, so good. So it's really neat to kind of see more of this happening in the space, even if it's not Jetpack.
Yeah, you do see. I'm pretty sure I read that you do see the activity log. You can drill down to it was on this particular backup, so you can really see what you did or didn't have with you at that point. Lee asks the question, simple history was good for this, although filled the database quickly. Are they storing on their servers? If so, that's awesome. I'm pretty sure, Lee, that they're storing this on their servers because BlogVault is, this system with staging and all this kind of stuff going on, and basically it's a kind of big storage solution, BlogVault. So I'm almost certain that's going to be kept on their servers because otherwise it would be a bit naughty, I think, to introduce a feature that filled your own database up. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the not naughty way that they've done it, to be honest.
Their product is now really maturing, isn't it? It's almost does absolutely everything now. I actually have, I think, 5 sites on there, and I logged in just to see what it was storing, and it really was storing just everything. I resized an image. Oh, okay. Everything was kept. Like Anne says, if something goes wrong, it's really good to go back. We had somebody on the podcast a while ago from WP Security Audit Log, and I don't know if that's a more well-rounded solution, but that's another option in the marketplace as well. WP Security Audit Log. Anything on that, Joe, or should we move on?
I mean, the only thing I thought while y'all were talking was I wish that I had an activity log for my kids so that I don't have to ask my 8-month-old like, what did you eat, or like my 4-year-old like, where did you put my wedding ring? Which is she hid it so she could find it. So, which she was helping. It was very nice. But I think having information like this is great, no matter like you all said, if it's just for you, if it's for a client, because clients might do something expecting some outcome and then another outcome happens, right? They don't understand WordPress like we understand WordPress, and having the audit log there is a much faster way to resolve the issue.
I feel like if you install Facebook on their phone, that's basically an audit log
Yeah.
of their entire life, including where they were
I know,
at any given moment in time. Yeah.
It's funny. I might do a sidebar here if that's okay, but I saw when like the COVID tracing rolled out on phones, people complaining about it on Facebook. Like now they can track whatever we're doing. And I'm like, Facebook knows way more about you than the government does, right? Like,
I had to explain that to some friends. Yeah,
same. I was like, I'm like, I don't want to like start an argument here, but like, here's how it all works. And Facebook knows more than the government does.
There was quite a lot of pushback in the UK from the government about the fact that the Apple Google solution was going to store less data than they wanted. The UK government wanted the app to store bucket loads of data.
Oh my gosh.
And so there was a lot of pushback from the tech community. Google and Apple in the UK declined to let the UK government, I could be getting this wrong, but if memory serves, they declined to let them use their technology because they wanted to store more data. I think, but this was right at the beginning when nobody really had a handle on COVID and everybody was scrambling to just make some sense of it. I think now that we've got, I think that in the UK we've spent £37 billion on test and trace. It was in the paper the other day, and they're pretty unsure what the benefit has been from the app. My app is permanently switched on. It's never once done anything except we're updating your settings. It just informs me when it's updating, but I've not been alerted to anything so far. So I've either been very lucky or it's not working so well. I don't know.
Likewise. And my wife works at a hospital, so I should probably get at least a notification from time to time.
Yeah.
Thank you to your wife, by the way. Shout out there.
Thank you. Yeah, she's amazing.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Okay, so there's security audit logs. Let's move on to this. Well, this is a bit of a sad story, actually, but for me, it's got a slight silver lining, shall we say? It's a fire at OVH, which Paul's going to tell us about. No, well, Paul, you can tell us about it as soon as I've dismissed this annoying pop-up. Hold on.
This is always the case on Search Engine Journal, isn't it?
Look, everything.
We need to load it up a few minutes before we can get rid of all the pop-ups. And OVH, I think it's a massive European server company, hosting company.
It's huge.
And they had, huge. And this huge fire just took out all sorts of websites, including Dopey Rocket and Imagify, which I think is part of Dopey Rocket. I think it's their image CDN. So some of the SaaS-based services were temporarily down. Now, obviously, we were just talking about BlogVault a minute ago, and I'm sure that Dopey Rocket and Imagify have something a little bit more bespoke than that in place, but they're able to get their service back up and running pretty quickly. But if you scroll down, Nathan, there's a picture of the fire itself somewhere, and it looks absolutely insane. And if you just imagine the reason why you need backups, you don't want one of your clients who didn't want to have backups calling you and saying, "Hey, Paul, I'm sure it's fine. I know the website's down at the moment. As usual, will it come back on in a few minutes?" And then you have to send them this photo and say that is your website.
Your website is literally on fire.
Let that be a warning to people who don't take backups seriously. That is why you need backups. Things like that can happen. But yeah, gosh, I mean, I don't know what happens next for OVH. I'm sure they've got multiple data centers, but that's a lot of insurance money.
They're actually a huge company. They're one of those kind of companies I think that sort of sails under the radar a little bit. But they're absolutely massive. I had a server for about 5 or 6 years in that data center, and I got rid of it about 6 months ago, and I had loads of websites on it, and I managed to move it elsewhere. But it kind of made me think more. And Anne and I were talking about this before we pressed record. That really, so many people don't know where their website is. They kind of believe that the internet is just this abstract thing and you click buttons, and the idea that there's an actual piece of hardware somewhere which is plugged in, consuming electricity, which we'll get onto in a minute, and is wired in, has got internet connections, and can actually break, and the hardware can break, or it can catch fire. It's remarkable. And WP Rocket, I think they were back within 12 hours. I saw that they were posting fairly quickly, so presumably they had other options elsewhere. But yeah, what a shocking thing to happen. I hope nobody connected with this had any trouble with that. But
well, Nathan, I remember that server that you had. So that is the server that you always used to talk about, and you were not sure to move to more regular hosting that we're all using, and you were sticking with that server.
I was sticking with it because I got a really good deal on it, but it was completely unmanaged. They would come, and if this happened, they would replace the hardware, or if any of the hardware blew up, they would replace that, or they would push the power button. They were the only two things my package.
Yeah, I mean, you had all sorts of backup systems in place and everything, but still, it wouldn't have been something to bring a tear to your own eye, seeing your data.
Because it was only in that physical location. Like there wasn't, there was no way I could have. Well, I've had to manually send it all somewhere else and get it all set up. So I feel very blessed that I managed to avoid that bullet.
Amazing. Yep.
That's I got like a master class on this from my friend Cal when I worked at the University of Scranton, because we had like the redundant servers and the routing, and if this went down and if level 3 went down, which sounded absurd at the time. And then I remember like 2 summers ago when level 3 was like down for a lot of people. And it's wild, right? Because like I hosted my first client sites on a computer in my basement.
Wow.
It was like my church's website and like my friend's dad's electrician business. But you really don't know. And like Paul said, like having those backups and like the 3-2-1 backup methodology, right? Like have it 3 different backups, 2 different locations, 1 physical copy. Because like having a backup on the server is not going to help you if the servers blow up, right?
No, that wouldn't be good.
They just made like a very memeable face there.
Yeah, just not a good thing.
Yeah.
Chris Hughes makes a comment. He's had servers there too. Yeah, they really are in shipping containers. They just stack them up. As soon as they need more space, they just whack another one on top with a crane, and they just sit there and I guess get hot over. You've got to imagine that the containers made of metal stacked on top of each other, full of really hot equipment, at some point isn't a good idea. There's a certain amount of stacking that leads to
even the cloud isn't just made up of steam. It's just a concept. It's not gas and air.
That terminology really doesn't help. I think the cloud. No. I don't think that's helpful, because I say things like the clouds look up in the sky and see they literally what? What do you mean?
It's up there. Yeah, it's up there. Yeah. With heaven and stuff.
It's ephemeral. It'll just always keep working. It's like the weather.
I think it's also made people not very. I'm kind of a minimalist, so I think it's made people kind of gluttonous with data collection, like just never deleting pictures, never addressing any sort of thing, because it's like, oh, I'll just store it. And we think about kind of what we're leaving behind. I had a really interesting discussion with someone about the idea of just physical backups. Like if we, had backups of our text messages sitting on our desks or something like that, like how would it change our feelings towards backups? How would it change our feelings towards what we're creating online? And how can we be better stewards? Because, as leading into this environmental piece around sustainability, we do need to start thinking about this collectively, beyond just like junk in our space. What about our online selves, especially as we just are creating more and more data? We don't think about the physical nature of it. And I think it'd be really fascinating to have a museum or something, an exhibit that shows like, this is your physical data. This is the average person's physical data that they create and carry around in the 21st century. Because I think we need to start switching our thinking to that a bit more.
Yeah. I recently had to rethink, because I've been using Google Photos, and recently, I don't know when it was, a couple of months ago, they're gonna, in a couple of months' time, switch off this infinite upload ability, and it's going to go against your quota in your Google Drive. So you have to pay for that storage for your photos now. And it really made me think, boy, I've been so trigger happy with my photography. I'll take 16 photos of the exact same thing, and then keep them all. for no good reason. And that's, and if somebody said to me, please, will you put the 68,000 photo, I'm just making up a number, 68,000 photos that you've got, actually put them in your house somewhere, it'd be like, oh, really? Why do I need to do that? And so I've started to think about other ways to keep those more locally, taking some paper copies of ones which I really like, as well as just storing them on a hard disk in the house and not just relying on Google, which segues beautifully, Anne. Thank you. We occasionally get a good segue, not that often, but this is a good one, because we're going to go and talk about this piece. Now, we had a course a moment ago from Carrie Dills, and we're going to just mention this one. This is happening next month in April. Jenny Wong, who's very, very active in the UK scene, the WordPress scene. She is running, it's on meetup.com. You can see it on the screen. It's called Tips on How to Reduce the Carbon Emissions of Your WordPress Website. It's, you know her, don't you, Paul? Hannah Smith.
So do you.
Yeah.
We all met at Manchester, WordCamp Manchester one year.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think I've also, and I think we've seen her in London as well. And I have invited her to come on this show. So hopefully at some point I need to check in with her again and make that happen, because she's doing a lot of talks now about the impact on the environment of websites and how to be more mindful about that in the websites that you're creating.
So ties in perfectly to the whole thing that we were talking about a minute ago, siloing your photos somewhere else and whatnot. And so if you're interested in this subject, you can go to this page. I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can find it, because the URL's got lots of numbers in it. But that put into mind this website, jacklennox.com, 1N, Lenox.com, jacklennox.com. This is a piece that he put together a couple of years ago. It was in 2018, 4th of June, about his ability to get the WordPress website down to 7K. Now, he went to extraordinary lengths to make this happen, but there was a real groundswell of interest. I remember at the time thinking this was really important, and I can't remember, but the numbers that he brought to bear to this were absolutely terrifying. If you multiply the amount of energy consumed on a typical Google search, and if you multiply that by a typical user during the course of a year, it actually adds up to real substantive amounts of electricity generated, and of course pollution created and so on. So I was just hoping to have a little bit of a conversation around this area. I confess, despite the fact that it had a deep impact on me at the time in 2018, it didn't have enough impact for me to go and address too much. I still carried on using the same tools that I do to this day. But I did notice earlier, Anne, you were saying that the footprint that Gutenberg puts out, you were pleased that it was, you mentioned the number of divs and so on. And I guess all of that has an impact. And I know this is something you're interested in as well.
Yeah, this is something that you actually, I don't know if you've seen this in Core Editor, but core devs will talk about this. Almost like half jokingly, it's like, oh, we need to pay attention to performance because we don't want to use up this much carbon. But it's a real issue. And so when we talk about page builders, when we talk about using plugins, like, yes, for security, don't overload your site with plugins. Yes, for performance, don't overload your site with plugins. But also when we think about the environment, which to me is one of the it's a great unifier across a lot of divisions right now. I think if we can have this ability to think about our planet, looking back on Earth, like I think that's a really powerful thing, especially in the state that we're in right now. But I actually just wrote a post, I think 2 weeks ago now, on one of the core editor improvement posts is about performance of both. Well, eventually there's going to be one about the core editor itself. So when you're typing in the core editor, but then also the pages that it delivers and the posts that it delivers. I can probably send you all a link to it, but it just basically talks about how it's reconfigured, how CSS stylings and block styles are bundled so that it's more efficient. So it only loads what needs to be loaded, and it causes really positive impact on performance, which of course there's the whole, Google's changing a lot of stuff come May in terms of how they deliver search results. So it helps there, but also in terms of this environmental impact, I think WordPress has a big responsibility to do right here and to be thinking really critically about performance. So it makes me really excited. That's actually something that stands out about the core editor right now, is that there is an emphasis on performance. There's always room for improvement, including how we measure performance. It's even that meta right now. There's actually open PRs trying to improve how we even talk about performance and measure it against benchmarks. So it's something I'm personally really passionate about. Partially from, I consider myself an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when you think about environmental impacts, it inherently impacts people from who are often underrepresented and under-resourced more than those of us. I mean, I'm sitting in an air-conditioned apartment right now. So it's something that I think we need to take really seriously, especially as the internet grows. So
couple of statistics on this. The first one is back on Jack's website, and he made the point back in 2018. I don't know if this needs to be updated because of probably wider adoption, that the internet internet uses about the same amount of produces, I should say, about the same amount of CO2 as the airline industry. Obviously, with 2020, that probably would need readdressing. But also last week on the show, we talked about the fact that Bitcoin, mining for Bitcoin now consumes more electricity than the country of Argentina, which is just bizarre. And this, again, we talked about the cloud, how ephemeral that is. It just doesn't mean anything. The internet, to me, despite the fact that I know this, I still see the internet as a complete zero sum. Like, I use it as if it's infinite and has no impact whatsoever. There is nothing in my head going, search less because you're creating carbon. And
the design's not set up that way, right?
No,
like, I think that's, there's a book I read called, it's like When Technology Bites Back. I love reading books that are critical of tech. But one of the things it talks about, another one is like to save everything, click here. But there's just not designs in place. And one of the designs it references is like, imagine you're plugging in your computer, but imagine the cord breathed. And then imagine if once your computer's charged, it just started writhing in pain. It alerted you in a almost like a evolutionary, like primal reaction to say, like, I'm good, unplug me. You're wasting electricity. So if we could have ways of, I think Nest is a really good example where Nest kind of helps you modify your behavior through reward systems. Like, there's a way to use these reward systems like streaks for good. And this addictive technology that we see on social media for good. It's just a matter of when it's used and how it's used. And so to me, this is partially a design problem. And I just listened to a addictive technology panel. So I'm like hot off the press of that. But I think this is one of those things where I'm hopeful that design can start coming into play in our physical technology. And even on the website where, Netflix, rather than saying like, hey, are you still watching? What question could they be asking? And we don't ask those things enough of the people who create the technology that we use. And of course, they want it to be addictive and they want it to be your eyeballs to be on it. But hopefully we can get to a more human-centered approach with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't even know what the questions are, let alone what the answers are. That's genuinely, I'm puzzled by this. I really do see it as an infinite resource, which I know is ridiculous. Paul, Joe, anything on that?
It just seems we're back to where we kind of summarized last week when we realized that, baby boomers and Generation X have screwed it up a bit. And we just got to hope that the kids come up with this ingrained in them and just can think about this whole approach to things in a completely different out-the-box way, which I think there's a lot of evidence to say that is what the kids growing up are doing. So yeah, but I mean, you can, the internet can get turned off one day. You only have to watch the episode of South Park where it happens to find out the disaster that would happen and the apocalypse that would beset us all if that were to happen.
Yeah,
there is more intellectual readings or viewings out there that Anna's talked about, so you might want to try some of those as well. But definitely, if you want a quick version, there's an episode of South Park you can watch.
I think it's really interesting because I feel like each generation is presented with problems, right? We come up with these innovations and then we discover the problems later, right? The Industrial Revolution enabled us to start to kind of globalize thing, and it really helped the American economy and the world economy. And just like the internet was invented to help researchers share information, and we probably wouldn't have had a COVID vaccine as quickly without it and without some of the innovations that we have. And now it's up to our generation and the generation behind us. And well, maybe we're all different generations, but I'm a elder millennial. and to figure out these new problems. And I really think it comes down to habits, right? Old habits die hard, and it makes it the onus is on the smart people to figure out, right? Like, how can we make electric cars more affordable? How can we make websites consume less energy? And I'll just end with the last thing I'm wondering now is, which has a worse environmental impact now? Bitcoin mining, which is this digital money, or actually printing paper money? Like, I'm really curious about that now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Maybe I've
And which
given
could be more
myself-
optimized too. Like that's
Yeah,
the rate of
right.
optimization is probably higher for Bitcoin than it would be for printing paper. But I'm not,
We have plastic money in the UK. Our money is all made of plastic, and I was talking to somebody the other day. And I was thinking, is this a good thing? Was it good? I mean, it certainly isn't from the ability to fold it. It's literally impossible to fold. You fold it and it ping, it's straight back to the shape it was prior. But I was just thinking, plastic. There's now billions of these small bits of plastic, which presumably have, I don't know, no credentials at biodegrading. I don't know. Maybe they're built in that way, but it did strike me as they're obviously more permanent. They'll produce less over the years, but equally, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we're through everything. If any of the guests, Anne or Joe, want to drop something in, should we give them an opportunity? Anne, anything that's happening to you this week that you want to mention?
I was just going to flag the third call for testing. Otherwise, stay tuned on Make Core for just a post summarizing the pain points. I think it's really great to talk about how exciting full sighting is, but I also am very realistic on the pain points. I think it's equally as important to talk about those in depth. So that's all I've got.
Yeah, thank you. I've just posted the link on the screen, but if you're listening to this after the fact, I'll make sure that they're all in the show notes. Thank you for that. And
in case it helps, just real quick, my username in Slack is @Annezazu, ANNEZAZU, and I welcome pings anytime. So please don't be shy.
Thank you so much. And Joe, anything from you?
Well, in my newsletter this week, I wrote about my thoughts on time versus money. It's been big in my mind lately because, or in the forefront of my mind lately, because I just launched a new community and I did it on Circle instead of using something like BBPress and BuddyPress. And part of the reason was I was trying to figure out what's the best way to spend my time. Should I spend 40 hours building BBPress and BuddyPress in such a way that gets it to the way I like it to look and the way I want it to work? Or can I just pay $40 a month for Circle, set up a Zapier to send new WordPress users over there? And I think it's a conversation that as more no-code, low-code tools come out with, people in especially the WordPress community or people who are very own your own platformy are going to need to think about. So I had those thoughts in my newsletter. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Where do you say I want to own my own platform versus what's a tool that will at least let me export that data when I'm sick of that tool?
Yeah, or when it closes down or something like that. Well,
Yeah.
Just out of interest, I've never heard of Circle. That's like a equivalent in functionality to something like BBPress, is it?
Yes, it's circle.so. It's a lot like, I think, Peepboard is another WordPress plugin. I might have messed that. Peepso is the name of that. But yeah, it's a community. You can create spaces for people to hang out and post in. It's kind of like a mix between like a BuddyPress and a BBPress, where it's bulletin boards and people can chat, and you can give access to people based on certain criteria. So I have a community for each of my courses. I have a community for my podcast membership, and then I have an open community for anybody who just wants to listen to the public episodes and comment on them. So again, I was trying to set all of this up in BBPress, and I couldn't get it to work the way I wanted it to within the allotted time I had set for myself. Right. And again, with my wife being a nurse, I'm a half-time stay-at-home dad when she goes to work. And I need to be more judicious with my time. And Circle has allowed me to reclaim dozens of hours, probably. So yeah, and then the other part of that is that if my community falls on its face in 2 months, it would have cost me $80 as opposed to like 40 billable hours. So
Right. Good point. Chris Hughes in the comments making the exact same point. Circle is great. Got a client who loves it. He did exactly what you did. Looked at BuddyPress, went for went for circle in the exact same way. Oh, cool. And where can we find you, Joe?
You can find me over at casabona.org. It'll tell you exactly what I do over there, and you can sign up for my newsletter, Build Something Weekly.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, the time has arrived where I'm going to say goodbye. We have this awkward thing every week where I get everybody to wave, and then I click the stop button on StreamYard, which has gotten, it's literally, I don't know what it is. It's some random amount of time between 1 and 8 seconds, and the video stops. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to start waving, and I'm going to press the button. Yeah, do jazz hands. Thanks everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.